Hey, I'm JR Lay, and I'd like to welcome you back to the Level Up Business Podcast. Today's conversation is going to be a good one. It is a special one because we are celebrating a big milestone with fellow entrepreneur Chris DuBois. Chris is the founder of Dynamic Agency OS, and he just hit his first year in business. So we're going to hit the pause button. We're going to reflect on what it really takes to build something that matters. This isn't just going to be a highlight reel. Chris brings raw honesty. He brings unique wisdom from the trenches about what it means to lead with conviction and how his military background has forged his entrepreneurial mindset. But most importantly, why creating positive sum partnerships is now more important than ever before. So regardless if you're just starting out in year one or if you've been leading for more than 30 years as a B2B entrepreneur, this episode is a timely reminder that success, it's not just about revenue. It's about alignment. It's about values. It's about playing the long game where everyone can win. So if you want to win as a B2B entrepreneur, I'm willing to bet that you have unique wisdom, that you have your story to share, just like Chris will share with you today. That's why we can help you elevate your brand's influence. We can help you increase your revenue. When you text me right now, 832-240-1922, text me, and I'm going to show you how easy it is to unlock your unique wisdom and share it with others by turning video content into a best-selling book in just 90 days. Welcome to the show, Chris. Dude, I'm so glad you're here today, man.
Yeah, I am glad that you are having me here.
And I just want to tell you congrats on hitting 1 year, 12 months, 365 days with Dynamic Agency OS. What a fantastic pause to just celebrate that a bit, man.
Yeah, my kids haven't starved yet, so it is possible. Look at that.
It is possible. And you know, before we get into some of the lessons that you've learned along the way, because when you think about Level Up Business and who watches, who listens to this, it is other B2B entrepreneurs. And some are at different points of the journey. Some are just getting started. Some are year one. Some are year 10. Some are year 30. And I just want to just pause. If you think back over the last year, what was the biggest win for you? And maybe it was your kids haven't starved yet.
No, I would have kept them fed even if I didn't eat. So that's not a win. Honestly, probably the biggest win for me was solidifying like my mindset around not only like I've known that I can win if I like the Army, I think put that in me, but more that I can win in the game I want to play. And stuff, and how I want to play it, really. So like the concept of positive sum games, and it just keeps coming back. It's like I really want to play games where I can win, yes, but like the person that I'm working with can also win, and ideally we have a client together that can win. And in just thinking through that, and it's how I approach partnerships. It's how I approach like any new relationships. I mean, it's led to so much growth from my own business. It's led to all these events where I can help the agency community a ton, and I get to feel good about everything that I'm doing.
I want to go back to your point about your military background, because I don't think we can gloss over that and get to this point of the journey, because it has been a part of your own personal journey of growth. And to your point, mindset, thinking about like the triple bottom line, it's like, how do I create value so that everyone's winning? That's an abundance mindset, which I think is so different than how many people are viewing the world right now in confusing and chaotic times. They're going inwards, and you're like, no, I'm going to expand, I'm going to grow outwards. But that's what I'm observing in these conversations. Entrepreneurs are naturally wired for expansion. How did the military play into your own personal development to get you to this point as an entrepreneur?
So one of the probably easiest benefits was that we would constantly get thrown into some situation where you just have to figure it out. And even if it's like nothing dangerous, right? Just, hey, we need someone to teach a class to the company with 150 people on this today. Right. And that you just get tagged for it. It's like, you might not actually be an expert in it, but you're going to go figure it out because, your commander just told you to do it. Yep. And so you're going to figure that out. And then at the same time, it's like, I've been in some time where, we're eating one meal a day and sleeping a couple hours a night, and we've got 80 pounds on our back, and we've been walking for 20 something miles. It's like, if I can still make decisions and keep operating at that, it's like, I can probably handle it if I'm standing behind my desk getting my work done for any given week. And so there were some months, I mean, now that I've been in this for a year, I guess, there were some months where like there was not a lot of revenue, right? It was not looking optimistic to the point where like when LinkedIn would send some featured job options, it was like, hey, maybe I applied to a couple of these. But I think the military side helped me with knowing I could just grit it out and get through those periods until now it's like, hey, everything's clicking. Like it's finally working.
I'm glad you brought that up because you're not sugarcoating anything. And for those watching and listening, Chris had a fantastic post where he was reflecting on 12 lessons over the last 12 months. And you did say, like, there were some moments that you almost took a job. Mm-hmm. But I'm curious because the entrepreneurial journey, it's hard. At least it can feel that way. It doesn't, and maybe it's all a matter of perception. Is it hard because that's what we've been led to believe? I don't know. I question things like this. Mm-hmm. What pulled you back though? What pulled you forward so that you would keep building your own thing? And the reason I use the framing, what kept pulling you forward, is there's a book by Dr. Benjamin Hardy called Be Your Future Self Now. Mm-hmm. It's like, are you operating from a future self that only you know exists?
Right. I don't know if I'm doing that. I think what really helped kind of ground me in those moments was my wife reminding me, like, look how far you've come and look what you're building. I had been working as a CEO of a marketing agency before this, like non-founder CEO. So really I was, really an intrapreneur coming up, helping to build someone else's business. I was working a lot of hours. And so one of the shifts that I promised myself when I started doing my own thing was like Mondays and Fridays are my days. I will work on the business. Like I'm not going to not work, but it's like, but if I choose to go hang out with my kids for a day, I have an entire day that I can go do that. And just in that, it's like that offsets a lot of the cost or like the financial needs that I need. Not for my billing, but like, it's okay if I'm not making $500,000. It's like, I have time to be with my kids right now. And so even in those times
another
where
form of wealth, right? Like when you're talking about you're investing time. And I think, and I just want to pause you on this point because it's so easy to gloss over, particularly when you're first getting started. And listen, dude, I've been an entrepreneur for 23 years. I've created a lot of pain, a lot of chaos unnecessarily in my life because I wasn't operating from values. Mm-hmm. And I know that was an important piece. And that's a great segue, I think, of, Monday and Friday, those are your days to work on the business, work on yourself, work on the family, invest time with kids. And I keep using the word invest time because I think time, we inappropriately think of time as a cost. Right. So I'm spending time. No, time's an investment. Time becomes a multiplier, particularly when you think about space and time. And I know that's a very like high level philosophical idea, but it's like, you got Marcus Aurelius, when you can read his book Meditations, and then you got the fictional Maximus Decimus Aurelius. But one of the things that, when he mentioned in Gladiator, it's like what we do echoes throughout eternity. And I think when we start operating from that idea, things change. How did values help filter what you were going to say yes and what you were going to say no to along this journey?
So a lot of it comes down to like the partnerships that I've been able to build and the connections I've been able to make. Because it's pretty easy for me to see, especially now that I've had this lens for a while, who is just trying to actually take advantage of my audience or something, right? Who just wants to make a buck for themselves versus who actually wants to like create net new positive value for like the greater community. And so I think a lot of the decisions that I've been making, like sometimes I'll have some pretty sweet opportunities pop up and it's like, oh, I can partner with these guys. And like, they've got tons of leads they could be feeding me. Like I could be running cohorts with them, like doing all this stuff. But when I go back and look at it, it's like, yeah, but then I'm actually like tied directly to their business for every decision. And so do they have 100% of the values that I have? And I could actually put my name on their company and still be comfortable with it. Right. And for a handful, it's not necessarily, it isn't the thing.
What's one of those values? Because that's what I was lacking. And in my second book, Banking on Change, I provide a strategic thinking model, VMVPV, which is the villain. Because I think anytime that we're going down this journey, whatever that journey is, if there's a villain that we can unite against, like for us, it's the self-limiting beliefs that hold other B2B entrepreneurs back from sharing their wisdom, from hitting the record button, from writing the book, from getting on stage. It's all these self-limiting beliefs. Like that's what we are now looking to attack as an organization. That drives our mission, which is the M. Then it's our vision, our purpose, our values. And it's the values piece, though, I was missing as an entrepreneur for so many years to where it's like I was just rudderless. It's like I wasn't going to do anything. What's one of the values that's guiding you forward here?
Man, I think so everything really comes back down to that positive sum game idea. But it's like if I can only win when someone else wins.
Okay.
And if other people aren't keeping that, like if you go into a business venture with two people and they're both saying like, I'm only going to win if you win. Now you're both like out competing each other to make the other person win. It's like, this is the ideal. But I think you can probably even go back to like marriages, right? Like almost all relationships, when you're just looking out for yourself, that's where that relationship starts to fail. Right. And so yeah, I think that's probably one of the stronger values is how do I set you up for success? Because by doing that, it's going to give me everything I need to feel good and then worry about my own success.
Yeah. And it's a rising tide begins to lift all ships. And I've been thinking a lot about this as, things have just changed. I've seen this shift over 23 years, but specifically since COVID, like 2020 was such an inflection point on a lot of different levels. But when it comes to the idea of collaborations and the ability to collaborate, I think there's been a shift there to where it's like cooperation means you're going to work well together. That's a default. It's a must. But there's a difference between cooperation and collaboration. Of course, cooperation is needed for collaboration. Collaboration, though, is where you're co-creating together. You're co-creating something that perhaps didn't exist, or you're co-creating to make things even better. And I think that's another area of growth that you have shared is to be able to shift, to be able to adapt, to be able to change, to be able to evolve. Because when you started out, you were thinking that you're going to help other agencies, marketing agencies with operations. But then you saw another opportunity and you were able to pivot, adapt, evolve, and let go of what your initial perspective was because you saw things different. What helped you recognize this change to make a change with your offer? And then what happened after?
So a lot of it came from just talking to my clients directly, like talking to the people I wanted to help, right? Interviewing your clients, interviewing your prospects, like that gives you so much information that you cannot get elsewhere. Like there is no chat GPT prompt that is just going to give you those answers. And going to client, when I would be talking about operations, even prospects would bring up the 10 other people they were talking to about agency operations. But if I went in talking about lead generation for agencies and positioning, they were like, yeah, I'm not talking to anyone about that. And like, it's something I really need. And I just, as I went on, I started realizing like, oh, this is like, there is a huge gap within the market for this. But also like lead generation is one of the biggest challenges agencies have. If you look at nearly every poll, survey, like questionnaire, lead generation ranks as one of the top 2 problems for agencies continuously. Right. And so it's more like, why aren't people solving this? It's like, do we just not know how, or is it just too hard to solve for? Like what is the problem? But I didn't really have an issue with it when running an agency. My clients that I've been working with weren't having an issue with it. So it's like, okay, maybe I can actually just do this and become that guy.
Wow. And it's interesting. I'm going to roll back because I don't think you can gloss over this point. You can't chat GPT this stuff. And that's what I'm actually really interested in myself with what we're doing at Level Up Business. It's unlocking, capturing, amplifying the unique wisdom that B2B entrepreneurs have. Because knowledge it was getting commoditized with the internet. It's even more commoditized now with large language models. But unique wisdom comes down to the unique perspective, which is the live, learn, shared experience that a B2B entrepreneur has, either as an individual or even with their teams, their clients. Back to your point, I mean, this is a great example, practically speaking. But then you have a unique method, a model, a framework, a system that then communicates what that unique perspective is.
Right.
But all of this boils down to authentic intelligence, not artificial intelligence, authentic intelligence, which is connections and conversations.
Right.
And when you think about that, where is the biggest threat you see today, not just perhaps in the agency space, but maybe just in the B2B world when it comes to connections and conversations? Because I see the pendulum is probably going to swing back to team humanity, even though all the tech bros and everyone else is AI, and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm just naturally wired to be a contrarian. So it's like when everyone's going that way, I'm going to be like, what about this?
Right. So just like you brought up with like, there was a democratization of knowledge. I think now we're facing this democratization of expertise, right? Anyone can be an expert. They just need a laptop. They can be sitting in their mom's basement, typing away, like creating content and doing all the things that say, hey, I'm an expert. And so for the market, now the decision isn't like, hey, can I find an expert? It's what kind of expert do I need, or how much of an expert do I need in order to help with different points? And so when you're going to very quickly be able to identify the individuals who are just using, like regurgitating the same stuff because they're using AI and these types of tools that they learn based off what's already out there, right? They're not creating unique concepts and things like that. And so the experts who actually get it and are doing, like, have their own unique like method for solving these problems are going to be the ones that start to stand out a lot more as those individuals.
It's funny because, I've written a couple of books banking on digital growth, banking on change. I started to frame out my third book with the working title as I've shifted my own business, and I still have my other business working within the financial services space, but I'm far more interested with this future business because I am operating from a future self right now, and that's giving me a lot of energy. I was going to write banking on expertise. And to your what you just tapped into is why I don't think I'm going to write that book or have the title, because of the commoditization of expertise. And another lesson that you shared, and it does, I think, connect these 2 points here when it comes to expertise and wisdom. In your own mind, what's the difference between the two? You have expertise and you have wisdom. Is there a difference, or am I my own bias blinding me with this?
Actually, I think you and I have talked this before with the DIKW pyramid.
Yes. What for those watching and listening?
So,
what is
there's
that?
a pyramid for how data turns to wisdom over time. And so just imagine a pyramid with 4 levels. The bottom is data, and then you move to data moves to information. Right. Then into knowledge, then into wisdom. And the way you progress through all of those, and I probably should have just pulled up a version to look at. Data, when you add meaning to data, it becomes information. When you add context first, then meaning. When you add context to data, I'm sorry for everyone listening. I'm slaughtering this as we go.
Let's roll this back. Yeah. I'm gonna give you a clean take on this, because what you're sharing is so important that I don't want to confuse those watching and listening. And here I'm gonna throw myself on the sword. I use this pyramid in banking on change, and so even for me to be able to articulate it, I'm like, well, what was that again? I was like, I don't know. I wrote it. It's like Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade when who was it? Sean Connery. So Harrison Ford's father, Indiana Jones's father. They were on this journey to get the Holy Grail, and he was like, I wrote it so I didn't have to remember. And I'm like, that's the lesson that I live by. I write things down so I don't actually have to remember them.
So I got it up. We can do this. All right. So you got data, information, knowledge, and then wisdom. In order to take data and turn it into information, you need to add context. And that context is super important. We need to know what data we're looking at, why we're looking at it, how it's like, what it's actually pulling in. That's what turns into the information. Once you have information, when you apply meaning, to that, that's where we start to create the knowledge that's required. And then once you have that knowledge and you have enough of it, you're able to start creating these insights that develop wisdom. I think an expert is someone who is able to spot the patterns faster than anyone else because they have already gone through the process of taking the data, applying the context, to turn into information. They have the meaning to get knowledge, and then the insights to turn that into wisdom. So they already have this, and they have a very, very quick way to continuously do that because they see the patterns. And so they can look at data, immediately apply some context, and move it up that pyramid very fast.
That's interesting. And that is where something else, I think there's a connection here because you mentioned the pattern matching. And that was one of the lessons I learned and probably one of the darkest moments of my life as an entrepreneur. Like David C. Baker came in and he just kicked my ass. But it also set me down this path of why we're having this conversation here today. And being able to show up and like, I've got the wounds, I've got the scars. I'm able to talk about that, even to the point of like being able to start talking about some of the addictions I was dealing with, in that dark moment. From the outside, people thought, oh my gosh, he looks amazing. He's got this amazing company. This, 2012. Yeah, but on the inside, it was just, I was a mess. And that's where another point that you made, and this was your lesson 6 in your LinkedIn post, probably hit the hardest. The business reflects the founder. When did you realize this with just your own clarity, your own chaos, and how that was showing up in the business yourself?
I think on 2 fronts. With the first being, I started to get a lot of referrals from other coaches, like people who I would say they're not direct competitors, but you could probably argue that we're taking from each other in some of these. But I was just always like, no, I don't want to play that game. I want to see how can we win together. And then we got to either they were at capacity, so they had to offset, or maybe someone wasn't a perfect fit for them. And it filled my client base at the time with just leads from other, like people who should have been the competition were not, because in working with them and talking to them, I think they also saw the idea of positive sum games, and that played out.
Which is, yeah. I'm hearing this coming through. It's a pattern. It's like community is greater than the competition. Community is greater than the competition. A rising tide lifts all ships. Collaboration, cooperation, co-creating together. You're highly convicted. And that was something that you shared on this. You can't outsource your conviction. Mm-hmm. And this comes down to belief and values, which is actually echoed in a recent conversation. I think it was with Steve Patty. We were talking about the belief to behavior spectrum. When it comes to outsourcing conviction, how do you get past those moments of the loneliness, the isolation, the uncertainty, because you have that conviction to fall back on?
It's a loaded question. I don't know. I think and this probably comes back to some Army stuff, but like a soldier with the right attitude is the most deadly person on the battlefield. Like they can have a knife going up against a tank. Like you're the Rambo figuring it out. Right. And I think a lot of that comes down to what conviction you have. And this might be, man, maybe we're going too deep on this, but I'll try to be quick. I think it was a Tony Robbins, something from one of his books, but he differentiated opinions, beliefs, and convictions. And opinions are something you can have them, you should have them, but you should be ready to change them when you got new information, right? A belief, a little harder to change because you have some experiences that helped kind of set that up. And then you have convictions, which are like, no, I'm willing to die on this hill because it is something that I fully believe in. I've had the experiences. This is where I'm at. I think one of the challenges we have in our current modern society is a lot of people create opinions and then treat them like convictions, when in reality, they should just be taking that new information and shifting. But for those who have convictions that they have been deliberate in accepting, I think everything gets a lot easier when you just know, like, hey, there is a reason behind why I'm doing this. And when you can feel like you deliberately selected that, right? This wasn't just, I fell into these convictions. It was like, no, I have made a choice to live my life this way. it is much easier to stand your ground and hold fast on those.
It's interesting how this is coming up in real time, because I made a post this morning on LinkedIn, and it's almost I feel highly convicted by this. And I like the delineation between opinions, beliefs, and conviction. This is getting into my core. Like you said, this is getting deep. And we probably could come back and have a second conversation about this. But I wrote, B2B entrepreneurs, will you be part of the AI revolution? I said, you are the resistant. I said, commit to be an expert entrepreneur, although I'm going to reframe that. Commit to be a wisdom warrior. And you know, you're letting these self-limiting beliefs hold you back. The most important thing is this idea of AI is it's authentic intelligence, and that starts with you, because no one else can be you. You can't outsource you. I'm going to build upon your thought. You can't outsource the conviction, and there's an energy there, and you're going to feel it, or you're not going to feel it. And I think even to the point of energy, like that energy is emotion in motion, and either that's going to be ascending or that's going to be descending. As we wrap up, what would your past year one, for someone watching and listening, what would be the one thing that you would recommend to them to go beyond year one, think about your own journey, or perhaps some of the lessons that can be applied throughout, whether it's go from year 0 to year one to year 3, what would be the one thing that you would recommend them to do next?
I say being intentional is probably the most important thing you can do for your business. Don't just chase the shiny objects. Don't do something because you heard some advice somewhere, right? Just know what you're building towards, and every decision should go through that filter of, does this actually help me achieve this goal? Does it help me build the life that I want? Because as an entrepreneur, right, your business is part of your life. Like, you are creating this for your lifestyle to be able to do everything else you want. If you're just miserable and doing everything because you're following other people's advice and doing what you think you need to do, you're hurting yourself. And so if you're just intentional about every decision, and you actually treat every decision like it is, I wouldn't say life or death, but like it's important to your business to be intentional and make these. Like, you're going to be way happier over time. And when you're happier in your business, it is much easier to stick out those low points.
That's a great way to wrap up. I would say it's the idea of intention connecting to it's another INT word, and we can look at etymology.
Yeah.
Intuition and intention. And what that intention, it creates the attention for what you focus on. Back to Tony Robbins, what you focus on is going to expand. Yeah. So, man, I really appreciate you sharing some wisdom of your first 365 days on this new journey here. Congrats once again, Chris. If someone's listening to this conversation and they're like, you know what? This is a great conversation. I like Chris. I want to make a human connection with him. I appreciate the unique wisdom that he brought. What's the best way for them to reach out, connect, say hello to you?
So LinkedIn for the greater audience. Christopher R. DuBois, I think is my handle. You can find me. But the Dynamic Agency OS for any agencies looking for some assistance. I'm happy to jump on some calls.
And also a podcast too for the agency listeners.
We got an Agency Forward. If you want to listen to a lot of interviews.
Connect with Chris. Check out the podcast. Learn with Chris. Man, I'm so grateful for you, buddy.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me. This was fun.
Absolutely. Thanks again for joining me for another Level Up Business podcast. If you're a B2B entrepreneur and you're ready to elevate your brand and expand your influence so that you can increase your revenue, text me right now, 832-240-1922, and I'll show you how quick and easy it is to turn video content just like this into a best-selling book in just 90 days.